3. I'm joined today by Zuby. He is a rapper and independent entrepreneur, a podcast host, and I hope this hasn't gotten old yet, the world record holder of women's deadlifting. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, it's been a pretty pleasant summer here in Canada. How are things over there in the Great Britain?
Things are okay, man. It's been a weird 15 months or so.
Oh, yes.
Um, I don't know where you are in Canada. I've heard that lots of parts of Canada are significantly worse than the UK, in fact.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's been a weird year in a lot of ways. In terms of what I do and my own business and my own life, things are going well and making good progress. But yeah, the world is just in a strange place right now. Certain things are beyond my control. So I am just doing what I'm able to do.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's the spirit. Yeah, we all feel that. Yeah, certain things are beyond our control and sphere of influence. I would like to start by asking you, what does the word hustling mean to you?
Hustling.
Hmm.
It's one of those multi-definition words to me, but hustling in the positive sense means working in an unorthodox and independent fashion on achieving something, right? So to me, hustling is generally, I guess someone could say that they're hustling to me is something it's got to have an element of independence and entrepreneurship to it. I don't
Hmm.
consider hustling just like working hard at 9 to 5 or something like that. To me, that's just working or grinding. But hustling to me is doing, whether it's a side business or doing your own entrepreneurial business or running your own company, doing something on the side or whatever it is. To me, that's what I consider hustling. That's how I personally understand it and tend to use the word.
Hmm.
For some people, it might be more generalized. For some people, it'll have a negative connotation. They'll associate it with like drug dealing or something like that. But for me, it's generally a positive connotation.
I see. Yeah, and I think I do recognize that sense of positivity and I guess striving to achieve in your music, your raps, and
Hmm.
which is in I think it was the song Perseverance that you call yourself the Jordan Peterson of rap, which I really like that that lyric. Have you
Thank you.
met the man himself, Dr. Jordan Peterson?
No, I haven't had a chance. I did go to one of his live events that he did
Hmm.
in Oxford about 3 or 4 years ago now when he was doing his, I think it was about 3 years ago when he was doing his 12 Rules for Life tour.
Hmm.
So after the event, yeah, no, that was when I met Dave Rubin. So I met Dave Rubin in person there,
Hmm.
but Jordan was pretty much inundated with, they had like some, yeah, there was just all this stuff happening after the event. And so he was kind of like crowded and mobbed and whatever. And the opportunity wasn't there. I met his wife, funnily enough, but I didn't actually get a chance to meet him that time. But I'm sure I think it's pretty much inevitable that it'll happen at some point.
Oh yeah. And as a aside, have you seen that Ta-Nehisi Coates Captain
Oh,
America
the Red Skull
comic?
nonsense. It's embarrassing, dude.
Oh
It's so
yeah.
ridiculous. We live in a world. We literally are living in clown world,
Hmm.
where I feel like we're just living in a giant South Park episode or a Simpsons episode now at this
Hmm.
stage, where stuff that satire is difficult these days because reality is so absurd, and
Hmm.
when reality is so absurd and ridiculous, it's hard to satirize it because the stupidity of the real world is actually funnier than any way
Hmm.
you could really make fun of it. So yeah, I saw that. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable. It's actually quite telling of where some aspects of society and culture are when you're demonizing someone like, I mean, Jordan Peterson has been demonized by weirdos for many years now,
Hmm.
but to, have the Red Skull is like a Nazi supervillain,
Oh
very
yeah.
literally.
Hmm.
So having him creating any sort of association between him and someone like Jordan Peterson is insane. And it shows how broken the mindset of people who create that kind of stuff
Hmm.
is. It just shows that, you know these are people who clearly think they're the good guys, but if that's a connotation that you want to make and be on the nose about it, especially, then yeah, you're not the good guy in the equation as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah, and I've somewhat familiarized myself with Mr. Coates's work, particularly his book Between the World and Me, which
Hmm.
is mercifully short. I think the central premise of that book is essentially, you know, black people are in America are perpetually are victims of
Hmm.
the white upper class,
Yep.
and yeah, I don't think that's true. And
I don't think it's
I
true, and I don't think it's helpful.
oh yeah, yeah,
It's helpful to him because I'm sure he's a multimillionaire off of it.
hmm
Um, but for any people, black people, white people, people of any color, it's not a truthful message, and
hmm
it's certainly not a helpful nor an empowering message. It's a victimhood narrative. It's something
hmm
that is divisive, and it pits people against each other, even if they haven't wronged each other.
hmm
And it's not, yeah, it's the antithesis of what I stand for, really. So I guess maybe that's why someone like him would view someone like Jordan Peterson as such an opponent, because he's preaching the opposite.
hmm
But someone who's trying to create hostility, resentment, and division across any immutable characteristic, and in this case, race,
hmm
or so-called race, which it's a fuzzy thing. It's a funny, fuzzy concept to even begin with. Then, yeah, like that's not the good guy. Like in history, that's never been the good guy, has it? The person who's trying to create animosity between people of different races and ethnicities. That's typically not the good guy. So, I think that speaks for itself.
Yeah, of course. And to bring back the to term hustling, I mean, there's a sort of a cotton industry of so-called race hustlers around, like people like Al Sharpton and
Oh
Louis
boy.
Farrakhan. And I mean, they are like incredibly rich, and they preach this gospel of, you know, black people are perpetual slaves and whatnot. And
Hmm.
of course, it's not helpful. It's only helpful to them, and it sort of like creates a, like you said, a victim mentality.
Yeah, and it's bad for everybody. It's bad for everybody, right?
Hmm
Um, like there's nothing wrong with, if someone has a message of empowerment,
hmm
as long as we're not bordering on any kind of supremacy, then that's fine, right? That's good. I'm all about empowerment. I'm all about the individuals empowering themselves and improving their communities and their families, whatever. I'm totally for that. But whenever it's this us versus them narrative, and it's, these people are here and these people are here, and this is immutable. And if you're just born like this, you're going to be here. If you're born like that, you're going to be here. Like, it's essentially racial essentialism, which was
Oh
like the
yeah.
kind of crap that they used to push back in the 1800s and
hmm
in the early 1900s. And we've all seen, in history what that leads to. We've seen that multiple times, and even to this day in different parts of the world. Even if you forget about the Western world for a moment, if you look at other parts of the world over the last couple decades and even now, you can
hmm
see where these type of ideas lead to, and it's literally never anything positive. It's never positive. Whenever
hmm
you start doing that, it's not positive. At the extreme, it ends in genocide, right?
hmm
And the less extreme, it ends in segregation and separation and suspicion, where people are now, a white person is looking at a black person suspiciously, and a black person's looking at a white person specifically just because of their skin color, which is like, I think, 0.06 inches deep, right?
hmm
Everyone's obsessing over this nonsense, whereas if you go below that, um, you'll see that we are all fundamentally the same. We're all different in certain ways as individuals, but fundamentally as human beings, we have the same basic structure. So
hmm
the fact, I mean, even having these conversations, I'm kind of like, why are we even having these conversations? Like, this is so whatever. Like, who
hmm
cares, right? Like, and I've been like that since I was a child. I've just been like, I don't care. Like from a kid, I've had been surrounded by people who just look different, right? Arab people, black people, white people, Asian people, like whatever. Like, I don't care. I've got friends across the board, fans, supporters, whatever, everything across the board. It's so moot to me. It's like the least interesting thing about a person. It's as interesting as far as, oh, okay, this person looks different. Oh, cool. Like, where are you? where are you from, or where's your family originally from? You know, like what's your ancestry? And there's some links to culture there. Okay, cool, that's interesting,
Hmm.
right? But in terms of making huge judgments about that person, or expecting them to believe a certain thing or to behave in a certain way or whatever,
Hmm.
doesn't say anything. And everyone inherently knows this as well. That's the thing that's sort of crazy about it, is that in the real world, like everyone knows that. Like we all know that, yeah, of course. Like of
Hmm.
course, just looking at someone is not enough to determine what's in their heart or what's in their brain or their behavior or whatever.
Hmm.
But then people get locked into these little moments and places where they kind of throw it out the window and they start playing that silly game again. So when it comes to stupid games, my general approach is it's best just not to play. Right, just
Hmm.
don't play. Like sit it out. Like you don't have to play. If people are playing a dangerous stupid game, like you don't have to play. You can say, hey, that's a stupid dangerous game, but you don't have to engage in it and be the one who ends up getting hurt.
Oh yeah, which brings me into your field of expertise, which is hip hop. And as a kid, I remember being very much into hip hop because it's, of course, it's a very different culture from where I am. I was born in Vietnam,
Mhm.
and but it also speaks to some of the greatest rappers. Speak to the very human experience that is very much universal. That is, regardless of race.
Mhm.
And I was reminded of this initial interview that you did with Ben Shapiro, where you managed to convince him that hip hop is music. Which, as
Yeah.
as much as I like him, I was rather disappointed that he didn't view hip hop as music. And it's something that disappointed me even more is that there's a popular music reviewer on the internet. His name is Anthony Fantano. His
Oh
channel
yeah, he's
name
not.
is
He's definitely not a Zuby fan.
No, and he concluded that Ben Shapiro not liking hip hop is racist,
Yeah,
and
he's a
that
clown. He's a clown though.
oh yeah,
Like
the Melon
I don't
Man,
like to diss people, but I've had interactions with him and he's not. He's just
Melon Man.
yeah. He's yeah. I don't know. Like I don't want to talk down on. I don't Let me not talk down on anyone in the podcast, but
Mhm.
yeah. Props to
Yeah.
him for what he's built on YouTube, but he's yeah, he
Mhm.
doesn't know what he's talking about with many other aspects.
Oh yeah, I find his politics very much disagreeable, but
Yeah.
still. Um, my question to you is, what were the hip hop artists that you grew up with?
Mm. Um. Quite a few. So I mean, I've got two older brothers, so I've kind of discovered hip hop through them.
Hmm.
Um, so the stuff they were listening to, this is going back to the '90s. So my brothers were very much into Wu Tang,
Hmm.
um, Nas. I'm trying to think of who all the artists they used to listen to: Buster Rhymes,
Wow.
Tupac, Biggie, Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Hmm.
Those kind of artists, I remember they used to sort of play a lot, and so I discovered hip hop primarily through them. Then when I was in my pre-teens, going into my early teens, I started getting into artists like Eminem, Dr. Dre, Nas, Jay Z, Ice Cube, Snoop, LL Cool J, whole lot of different artists. I mean, I could sit and list artists for a very long time, but those were sort of the initial artists that I really started listening to. And then when Kanye West came out, I was a big Kanye fan. 50 Cent. There was that whole period where there was the whole big shady aftermath movement with Obi Trice and D12 and all of that. And um, yeah, that was kind of like a really fun and cool era of hip hop for me. Kind of, let's say between 2001 and maybe 2007, 2008. That was kind of like a period during my teenage years when I was just like, we were just between my friends and I, we were like buying pretty much every CD that dropped and we were just listening to absolutely everything. So those were some of the artists that really got me into hip hop. And then it wasn't until I got to university that I started rapping myself. I started rapping when I was 18. Started just as a hobby to begin with. And then as time went on, started taking it more seriously, started recording songs. And then
Hmm.
after 10 months of rapping, I released my first album, Commercial Underground. And
Hmm.
that was the very first spark of it being actually something I was doing more seriously as a career and taking it beyond a hobby.
Oh yeah. And it was and that was in what year?
2006.
Wow. So almost 15 years later, and Word of Zuby would be your eighth album, studio release. That
Ninth release,
oh okay.
ninth release, sixth album. So I
Oh
have I have
okay.
5 albums and 3 EPs out at the moment, and this will
Okay.
be my sixth album or my
Hmm.
ninth project in general.
Yeah. So I've been listening back to some of the teaser tracks. I find that the song "Okay Dude" is a banger. That's what
Thank
they
you.
call it, and I really enjoyed that line, "Going viral like Corona." They had to quarantine me. Oh boy,
Yeah,
that's a good
timely.
one.
Timely lyric, yeah. Yeah, the way that song came about is funny. Obviously,
Hmm.
I had my temporary suspension on Twitter for saying "Okay, dude" in
Hmm.
response to somebody, and
Hmm.
it ended up turning into a one of my most popular songs and a successful merchandise line. So, shout out to the person who got me temporarily suspended off Twitter. I turned the lemons into lemonade.
Yeah, and also shout out to Joe Rogan who mentioned the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
controversy, and it was
yeah.
sampled in the song's opening. Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Joe Rogan in general. He's supported me
Hmm.
and had me on his podcast to have a young independent rapper from the UK on his show on the biggest podcast in the world. That was an honor, and I'll be back on it again at some point, most
Hmm.
definitely. And yeah, shout out to him for just supporting me and following me online and supporting what I do. It's dope
Hmm.
when what's one thing that's happened that's really cool over the past couple of years is a lot of people whom I greatly admire and
Hmm.
look up to and respect have become fans of mine.
Hmm.
Have become fans and supporters.
Yeah.
And that's crazy to me.
Hmm.
Like there's people now who I'm in touch with and I'm like, man, that's crazy to hear that coming from you, like just how far it's gone and how global it is and how organic it's all been. It's pretty mind-blowing. It's definitely an honor. And it also makes me feel, I mean, I've always known I was put on this earth to do something special. But
Hmm.
it makes it clear. It makes me very excited about the future because I'm like, okay, Lord willing, I've got a lot of decades to live, so I just got to keep going on this trajectory that I'm on, and
Hmm.
I'm already seeing how I'm impacting and influencing people all around the world. So I'm very excited. You mentioned Jordan Peterson earlier.
Hmm.
You mentioned Joe Rogan earlier. These guys are 20 plus years old. 20 plus
Hmm.
years older than me. So awesome. Where am I going to be when I'm in my 50s, when I'm in my 60s? Like, how much can be achieved? We're just kind of hitting the road running now. So I'm very, very excited about the future and everything that's gonna transpire with it.
Oh yeah, one can only imagine.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not aiming low. I'll tell you that now.
Hmm. Yeah, and one of the very cool things about you is that in many of the rap songs, if not all of them, you do not use profanity,
Mm-mm.
and it reminds me of this Eminem lyrics from the real Slim Shady.
About Will
uh,
Smith.
yeah, Will Smith don't have to cuss to sell records, but
Yeah.
I do, so fuck it, fuck you too.
I love that line. I don't cuss, but I love that line. It's great.
Mhm. Yeah. So, is it like a rule for you, like that you don't cuss, or is it like a creative thing, like everyone curses anyway, so I'm gonna do this novel thing?
I don't cuss in real life either.
Oh, okay.
I
Wow.
don't cuss in real life.
Hmm.
So I don't cuss in my music. My music is a representation of me. I'm
Hmm.
not gonna not swear in real life, and then suddenly I get into the studio and I start using all this language and profanity that I normally wouldn't.
Hmm.
So, I mean, my family don't. People in my family don't swear. My parents don't cuss. My brothers, my sisters, none of us swear.
Hmm.
Extraordinarily rarely. I don't cuss at all, really. I might there's some mild words that I don't really consider cuss words, which I'll use once in a while. But in terms of the big ones that people consider, the ones you bleep out on the radio or on TV,
Hmm.
I don't use them. And it's not even in my active vocabulary. It's not like I go out of my way to avoid it. It's a little
Hmm.
bit like drinking. Like I don't drink alcohol, and
Hmm.
to some people it's like a big deal.
Wow.
To me it's like nothing. Like I don't care. I don't even think about it. It's not like
Hmm.
a thing. I'm like, oh, I really want to drink, but I'm so disciplined that I'm not going to do it. Or it's like some big religious thing or something, it's just like, no, I'm not
Mhm.
interested. I have no reason to do it, so I don't do it. I don't do anything unless I have a good reason to. And it's that simple. And if I
Mhm.
don't have a good reason to do it, then I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do it, especially if it's something that I don't consider
Mhm.
wholesome or positive or helpful or useful. So, and also on top of that, I have people, I have such a big audience. I have such a wide ranging, diverse audience. And I wouldn't want to put anything out there that a child that I wouldn't want a child repeating, right? That I'd be like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, like I'd be embarrassed if I heard a kid. I've got 9 nieces and nephews, right? I would never want my nephew to listen to one of my songs and he picks up some word in there or something. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's awkward. Like I wish he didn't hear that, right? I don't have kids yet, but I don't want my future children to not be able to listen to my music because I myself, I'm embarrassed about what they're going to learn from it. I don't
Mhm.
want even parents or grandmas not wanting to listen to my music and hear my message and cut them off because
Mhm.
I'm throwing around language that I simply don't need to. I can get my
Mhm.
point across perfectly without using any of those words, and I've managed my entire life to do that.
Mhm.
So simple as that. To me, it's a downside. If that's how people choose to express themselves, I'm a free speech absolutist.
Mhm.
Then they're totally welcome to. I'm not going to come and start, telling people what words to use and what not to use. That's not my business.
Mhm.
But in terms of the way I do things and the way, certainly the way I interact with people in real life, like it's just not necessary. I think it's crude. I think it's disrespectful. I think it's abrasive, especially when people go overboard with it. And I don't like it, so I don't do it.
Oh yeah, and I think that reminds me of the that moment when conservative media uh, got really sort of upset with the whole that Cardi B music video, and as well as the new Lil Nas X music video. And
Yeah,
I'm I don't think much about it because this kind of like a cultural uproar has happened before, but
it's not new.
yeah. But the thing is that people like Cardi B and Lil Nas X, they a substantial part of their fan base are
Hmm.
children, and
Yeah, that's the part that is concerning,
mhm,
especially with Lil Nas X, because he very, very specifically and explicitly cultivated a very young fan base.
mhm,
So for him to do that and know he's got hundreds of thousands, millions of young people, I'm talking probably under the age of 15, following him and probably subscribed to his YouTube channel and
mhm,
coming to his gigs and stuff. I mean, he did a play tours, like he was performing at elementary schools and stuff. And so for him to do that and then to throw out that kind of, I'll be honest, I've never even seen that video or heard the song. I've just seen like a tiny clip of it, which made me go, okay, I'm not interested in watching it. So I think that's pretty dark. I think that's pretty messed up to explicitly cultivate a very young fan base and then put that kind of content out there, which is very, very different to the previous content. I think
mhm,
that's more of an issue. Someone like Cardi B, it actually kind of bothers me less because her music is, yeah, I'm sure there's young boys and girls who listen to her as well, but I don't think she's ever kind of explicitly carved herself out to be an
mhm.
artist for the kids,
Right,
right?
yeah,
So it's different. It's different. If you have a platform and I don't know, imagine, okay, you've got YouTube channels which are based on like toys and cartoons and kid stuff, right? So
oh yeah,
millions of kids are subscribed to those channels or their parents are subscribed to those channels.
mhm,
And then if one of those channels suddenly like uploaded a video of something very adult or controversial or full of swearing or whatever, people would rightly be like, yo, like what the heck? Like that's not good. That's not right. So it's kind of that bait and switch that I think is pretty dark, right? If it's like, okay, you've cultivated your whole audience with this kind of shtick, then like some heavy metal bands have done, or maybe even certain rappers have done in horrorcore or certain artists, right? Then that's
mhm,
one thing. But if it's I don't know. If the truth is, we all know children are not to be treated identically the same as adults. We all know
no,
that. It's a very inherent thing. It's even in law. Like we understand people human beings develop, right? You
mhm,
reach adulthood. somewhere around the ages of 18 to 25, depending on what aspect of it you're
Hmm.
talking about. So there's a reason you don't let a 5-year-old drive a car, right?
Yeah.
Or watch an R-rated movie.
Hmm.
This is obvious. I don't need to explain this. So I think that delineation and distinction is pretty important. If you're going to put out adult content, let it be for adults. And if
Hmm.
it's for kids, then keep it PG, as they say.
Hmm.
Don't bring in the kids and then start putting stuff out there, whether it's sex related or violence or profanity that
Hmm.
is going to corrupt them, to put it simply.
Oh yeah, and which I think there's also a lyric in "Okay, Dude" where you mentioned that this phenomenon of inviting drag queen to
Oh yes.
read books to kids, and they tend to be
Yeah.
very explicit in what they do.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, look, drag is adult entertainment.
Oh yeah,
Always
it
has
is.
been.
Mm-hmm.
Always has been. Right. Just like I don't want strippers coming in dressed in their stripper outfits come read to children. Like, no, why?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why? If you want to read to kids, like you can have people read to kids. Why does it need to be drag queens or strippers or porn stars or something? Like, what are you trying to do here?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like it's clearly perverse. It's not even, we live in this society where it's like you're not supposed to judge anything. It's like anything goes, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
anything goes. And I'm just like, no,
Yeah.
no, I don't buy that. And,
Mm-hmm.
there are some things that are wrong. There are things that are shameful. There are things that should not be encouraged. And it's important for society to have moral standards. It doesn't mean everyone's always going to live up to them or everything's going to be perfect all the time, right? I'm not a utopian. But at the same time, there are boundaries. And, I think regardless of someone's belief system, there are certain things where people just know certain things are wrong. Like
Mm-hmm.
even if it's just in your conscience, you're like, that's not good, is it? Right? There's something bad here, right?
Oh
No one
yeah.
needs no one has to come and explain it to you and put out the whole epistemology. If you walk down the street and you just see someone just kicking a puppy, just kicking a dog down the road, right? Everyone
Mm-hmm.
knows that's wrong, right? You don't need to have it explained through some theory or something. You know that inherently. Um, so yeah, I think it's important to maintain those standards. And like I said, standards will not always be reached, but we at least need to have them, and people should strive for them.
Oh yeah, and I'm somehow reminded of those college frat hazing rituals. I've never been in one, and I'm not really interested in being one. But it's really because many of those rituals are very much wrong, and one would never like replicate it with anyone else. But because of the pressure to be sort of like be cool and be one with the group with the boys, they go with it anyway. So yeah. So is it possible that somehow we sort of like lower or forfeit our standards because we want to fit in?
I think it happens all the time.
Hmm.
I think it's extremely common.
Yeah.
This happens with children, absolutely happens with teenagers and young adults. A lot of bad decisions made in that time frame are from people wanting to fit in, wanting to be the cool kids, wanting to be with the crowd, not wanting to be called names. So human beings are so susceptible to social pressures, which isn't always a bad thing, right? It's a neutral thing. It's not something that's always bad. If those social pressures are good and are wholesome and positive and moral, then it's good to be influenced by them, right?
Hmm.
It's good to feel pressured into behaving well and to feel shame when you do something that is wrong and is greatly, greatly frowned upon. Like those mechanisms exist for a reason. But it's very important that those do not get inverted to a stage where good is being called bad and bad is being called good, which
Hmm.
is something that people in the modern Western world, not everybody, not even most people, but there are certain powers and influences out there that seem to very much be pushing that, right? They want to make evil good. They want to make good evil. At the minimum, they want to make everything a gray area. Everything's subjective, right? There's no right, there's no wrong. You'll even hear some people say this, right? There's no right, there's no wrong. Everything is just subjective. It's just what you feel. Do what makes you happy, like whatever. It's like that's a terrible life philosophy, man.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's not the way forward.
Mhm.
And yeah, there are certain things that are gray areas, and some things are nuanced and complicated, but some things are not. And some things have existed. Look, just because something has existed for a long time doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea. Just like something being new doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad idea.
Mhm.
But most, if something has existed for a long period historically and existed across multiple cultures and isn't sort of at face value, like, say, harming somebody, then there's probably a decent reason for it, right? It doesn't mean it's probably a good reason for it. So I don't know. Let's take something like marriage.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm saying
Okay.
this is someone who's not yet married. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, but marriage has existed for millennia across the human species in different
Mhm.
countries, different cultures, across different ethnicities,
Mhm.
totally different parts of the world. So there's probably a good reason why people get married, right? It's probably a good that suggests how long it's persisted and how widespread it is. Whether you believe in God or someone believes purely in evolution, someone's atheist and they believe like you this institution exists and persists for a reason.
Mhm.
So you've got some people now, and this isn't necessarily a new thing, but over the past couple of decades, who, for example, think that, oh, like marriage is just stupid. It makes no sense, right? They
Mhm.
think they're smarter than all these other billions of people who have come before you and who are still here. And it's like, maybe you haven't really thought of that in depth. Okay. This isn't even saying everyone has to get married. Of course not. But there's probably a good reason for it, right? It was probably determined through the various structures of society or evolution or whatever that
Mhm.
this is a good this is a good thing. This is a good institution, right? This is a good way to bring children into the world and to raise families and to have healthy, stable
Mhm.
communities, nations, countries, so on and so forth. Um, so yeah, I think when you see something that exists across has persisted for a long period of time and in a very wide area, then that's normally, like I said, not always, but it's normally a sign that okay, maybe there's probably something there. There's probably
Mhm.
something there.
Yeah, and it does remind me of how Jordan Peterson would borrow Jung's view of myths and how, in all across the cultures, there are a lot of similarities between myths. Say, like say, Jesus Christ of the Bible and Horus in the Egyptian myths and all that, and he calls that the collective unconscious and how people believe in similar things. And
Mm-hmm.
I think what really turned me off of Black Lives Matter, I mean, at one point I was sort of for it because I thought it was, it
Yeah.
protests of,
Yeah.
black kids being unjustly killed by police. But then again, they propose this, they adhere to this really Marxist idea of the family. They think that the family
Yes.
itself is destructive. Meanwhile, I
Mm.
mean, fatherless homes are very much endemic in American Black communities.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, that's not right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Catchy name, huh?
mhm,
That's the best. That's the best named organization probably in history.
mhm,
Probably the cleverest name ever. Um, because yeah, I mean it's semantic overload. So
mhm,
everyone agrees with the actual statement, but that doesn't mean that the organization itself and their actions and their goals and their motivations are in line with it, let
mhm,
alone positive, right? And with something you've just mentioned, that's saying one thing, but then the action or the ideology you're pushing for is something that's very destructive, right?
mhm.
When they talk about defunding or abolishing the police, what happens when you abolish the police in a community? More people get assaulted, more people get
Yeah,
robbed, more people get murdered, right? We know all this, right? Especially at the same time these same people are then pushing for like very strict gun control measures on citizens. If at least their position was okay, we want to get rid of the police but we want to arm all the civilians, depending on what someone's thoughts are on gun rights, they may strongly agree or strongly disagree with that, or somewhere in the middle. But if it's like, okay, I want to disarm the law abiding citizens and also I want to abolish the police,
Mhm.
then you're just creating an obvious situation where predators and criminals are going to be running things. And that's not
Mhm.
even theoretical. Even last year, you can see how crime has gone up in the USA in places where the police has stepped back over the past
Mhm.
12 to 18 months. You see an increase in murder rates. You see an increase in crime. You see an increase in robbery, burglary, etc. So um, it's just stupid. Honestly, it's either stupid or it's malicious. And with something like that, I don't really know if the difference matters.
Mhm.
You know, there are certain things where I don't care if it's stupidity or if it's malicious, the result ends up being the same thing. And so when you're talking about lives, you're talking about people's lives, and that's literally what you're calling yourself, then I'm like, okay, cool. I agree with the statement. We all agree with the statement. So let's
Mhm.
have a real conversation. Like you said, let's talk about the family. Let's talk
Yeah.
about family. Let's talk about fathers. Let's talk
Mhm.
about education. Let's talk about um, drug violence. Let's talk about gangs. Let's talk about um, influences. Let's talk about poverty. Let's talk about what is actually fueling the stuff. Let's talk about diet. Let's talk about nutrition,
Mhm.
right? If you look at the top 10 causes of death in Black Americans, police nowhere to be found. Of course not, right?
Mhm.
Probably not even top 20. So, like, that is where the real conversation would be if people were serious, if people didn't just want to virtue signal and feel like little civil rights leaders or whatever in 2021, and people
Mhm.
actually want to care about saving lives in general, Black lives, all lives, white lives,
Mhm.
Asian. I don't care, everybody. I don't. These modifiers are irrelevant to me. Then you need to have those serious conversations. And the fact that people don't want to have those serious conversations, let alone take action on them, if people don't want to do that,
Mhm.
I don't take those people seriously. I don't care. Someone can throw BLM in their Twitter bio or their
Mhm.
Instagram bio, but if they don't care about all these things that I've just mentioned, then they're just virtue signaling, right? They're just hacks
Oh
at
yeah.
best. And it's whatever, man. Like my tolerance for this stuff is very low now. You can probably tell in my voice. Like my
Definitely.
I'm so over it, and I've been like that for years,
Mhm.
right? Like I've known about BLM for like 5, 6 years.
Mhm.
Okay. And so for me, it wasn't, I think a lot of people discovered it last year or it became really trendy or something last year.
Mhm.
But I'm like, yo, I've been following this stuff for ages. I've been saying the same stuff. And I'm just like, these people are not serious. Like a
Mhm.
lot of people are not serious. There are people who are serious and who are willing to talk about these things and have difficult conversations and take action. And I salute to those people. But people who are just trying to virtue signal or who are trying to enrich themselves or destroy property and riot and loot and harm people under
Mhm.
the banner of so-called social justice,
Mhm.
I've got no, I have no time for that, man. I'm not interested.
Oh yeah. And of course, telling people to eat more veggies and exercise a bit more would not make the news, would not make a catchy article
Mhm.
headline. But telling people
Same.
that hiking is somehow ableist and
Honestly, like
white exclusionary.
we need to just ignore these people.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, like people who put these stupid
Mhm.
articles and blogs out there saying that like milk is racist or like cycling is dominated by white men. Like we need to just mock them. Like they should just be mocked into oblivion. Right? I don't know
Mhm.
why people are so like people give them too much leeway. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, you've got everyone has a right to have an opinion, even stupid opinions.
Mhm.
But if you're gonna pull that kind of nonsense, then yeah, like you should get aired out for it as far as I'm concerned, because it's just so stupid. It's so dumb.
Yes.
And again, it's divisive. It's like, what do
Mhm.
you even, how does that help anything? Right? It doesn't help anything. And it also distracts from the real issues. If
Mhm.
you want to actually talk about making things better for people in certain communities or helping people out as individuals, etc., that's a noble cause, right? That's a
Mhm.
noble cause. But if your take on it is, um, yeah, we need to, the why the country, 3 reasons why the countryside is racist, or like banning Aunt Jemima, taking Aunt Jemima off the pancake
Mhm.
syrup bottle, removing Uncle Ben from the rice packet. I'm like, what are you clowns doing? You people are idiots. Like you're actually idiots. I will call you. Other people won't want to call you idiots. I'm going to straight up say you're a clown if you're doing this stuff, right? It doesn't do anything positive. does absolutely nothing positive, does nothing to reduce racism, does nothing to help anybody, absolutely is not saving anybody's life.
Mhm.
And no one asked for this. Who was out there petitioning that we need Aunt Jemima taken off the syrup? Nobody. And then 2 seconds later, these same people will say they need more black representation. It's like, well, you just removed like the black, you just removed black representation from various products and things like that. So it's all silly, man. It's all a silly distraction.
Mhm. Yeah, which does remind me the inconsistency. So I think you may have mentioned in one of your interviews that most of the rappers that both you and I admire, they do promote I guess small c conservative values such as having a family and entrepreneurship and even going to church. I mean, Kanye West and Chance the Rapper comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
But mm, when it comes to say politics, they often support the party that that reject all that, the party that embraces this collective victimhood and
Mm.
lack of personal responsibility.
You're talking in the USA, yeah?
Yeah, and even in the UK as well. I know
Mm.
that Stormzy supports the Labour Party. That's
Yeah.
the Jeremy Corbyn one.
Yeah. I think to give people credit, I'm obviously not a fan of the Democratic Party nor the Labour Party.
Hmm.
I'm not a fan of the Conservative Party in the UK either, by the way. Um, to give them credit, to give the devil his due, for a long period of time, for the majority of my life and the majority of most people's lives, these parties were not insane.
Hmm. Okay, that's
Okay.
good. That's good.
Right. So, what we are witnessing now, the modern day 2021 Democratic Party, where you've now got people in there who are more radical and they're pushing, this sort of
Hmm.
critical race theory and some of these more extreme ideologies and stuff,
Hmm.
even like outright socialism bordering communism. That's
Hmm.
a new phenomenon. And I think the average person isn't on Twitter. They're not listening to podcasts. They're not really paying that much attention. They still think like, oh, when they think of the Democratic Party, they're thinking of like, you know, they're still thinking of like, the old school Democratic Party, right? Or they're maybe even thinking Obama, right? I
Hmm.
mean, Obama, if you look at Obama's policies and some of the stuff he was pushing, and I look, some conservatives or Republicans may disagree with me on this, but he's partly more in line. A lot of his rhetoric and positions are more in line with modern day Republican positions,
Hmm.
at least the 2008 version of Obama,
Hmm.
than they are with anything to do with the modern Democratic Party. Right? That's how far it's shifted in just what 13 years. Like it's become a whole different. It's become a
Hmm.
whole different beast. So when I don't. I mean, even if you look at these politicians as well, it's like some of them will say some nonsense, but the truth is, look, here's a real truth. Most people in the world, even people who are liberal or leftist, are still largely conservative.
Hmm.
Okay, look at all the Democrats. Look at all the look. Look at all the prominent Democrats. They're all married.
Yep.
They all have families.
Hmm.
Okay, they're not. So they're they may say some nonsense, but if you actually look at what they're doing, like Joe Biden's pretty conservative. Like
Hmm.
in real, like I bet, like in real life, I think he's actually like pretty conservative. Like he doesn't strike me as someone who's like some super liberal, progressive, or leftist or whatever.
No,
Like
no, he
I
isn't.
think there are other people pulling strings, using him as a front to push past certain policies.
Hmm.
But he himself, as far as I know, like I mean, he claims to be a Catholic. Um,
Hmm.
I know I know he used to be pro-life.
Hmm.
Um, he's not like, yeah, pro open borders and let's have communism, let's overthrow capitalism, let's abolish the nuclear. He's not. He's not a radical. I think some radical ideas are going to get pushed through him. I think he's kind of like the cushion that is
Hmm.
used, kind of like I don't know the right term to use, almost like a dummy that they can
Hmm.
put up here and say, look, it's just old Uncle Joe. And then they
Hmm.
can put certain policies through and whatever. But the truth is, well, these people, Nancy Pelosi, like, oh, lots of them have been married for decades. They have children. I'm sure the way they actually raise their children and the things they teach them or whatever, like they're not teaching them all this wacky nonsense.
Hmm.
Um, And most people in the world, the reason why I say most people are actually pretty conservative is because it's what works, right? Even if you take someone who is liberal or progressive, do they want to change everything? No,
No.
they don't. They actually want to conserve most things. The amount that they may want to change or where they think certain problems lie will be different for someone who's like conservative or centrist or libertarian or whatever. But we all agree, actually, in real life, we all agree, okay, there's a lot of stuff we want to conserve, right? There is stuff that we want to conserve.
Hmm.
You'll struggle to find someone in the real world who thinks that abolishing the nuclear family is a good idea,
Hmm.
right? Like, or who thinks that marriage is just bad. Yeah, there's some people who do think that, but
Hmm.
they're a tiny minority. Most people know, okay, marriage is good. It's good for children to have two parents, like to have a mother and a father. That is a good thing. Um, Most people do not want to abolish the police. Most people don't support open borders and just let
Hmm.
everyone go in. Just everyone just come in. Like most people aren't like that, you know.
Hmm.
Um, so I think there's this weird thing that happens where I don't know exactly what it is. Some aspect is social media, some of it is mainstream media, some of it is what the politicians are saying and what certain activist groups are doing. But
Hmm.
I think it creates this illusion where it seems like things are certainly more polarized now than they were, say, 15 years ago. But it
Hmm.
creates this idea where it's like um more kind of more black and white, like the split is even bigger, like, you know, Republicans are pro family and pro children, and like, and then the Democrats are like anti family,
Hmm.
and I'm like, I know it can be tempting to do that and to
Hmm.
demonize your opposition, or like Democrats will say, the Republicans are the party of racism and the party
Hmm.
of white supremacy, and like just all of these really like really charged terms. But in the real world, it's like, no, the average Republican voter is not voting for white supremacy and racism and police brutality. And the
Hmm.
average Democratic voter is not voting for open borders and communism and abolishing the police. It's like you see nut jobs on Twitter who are advocating for that, right? For
Hmm.
sure. But in general, when you actually talk to people and you just observe the real world, you see, okay, it's not like that. Actually, people actually have pretty fairly similar values, right? There are differences where there are places where it differentiates, or where someone's trust of who should do something
Hmm.
may vary. So I'm someone who's more conservative and libertarian leaning. So
Yeah.
I'm someone who thinks that, number one, I generally do not trust governments, especially gigantic governments, right?
Hmm.
And there's good reasons for that. Look at history.
Definitely.
Look at now. So
Definitely.
there's good reasons for that. And also, I generally think that problems are more, and this problems and solutions are more individualistic and community based than they are something that can just be kind of fixed top down from a governmental level. What you mentioned before, you were talking about fatherless homes, right?
Hmm.
That's not something that you can just like put in a government policy and fix it, right? It's
Yeah.
not. That would be lovely, but it's not like that, right? You have to. It's about individuals, communities, decision making. There's no politician who's telling me to go out and impregnate 4 different women, right? I don't remember any politician putting in a policy telling people that was a good idea. Okay, so individuals need to make good choices, and that should be encouraged. That's why I'm big on personal responsibility, accountability, so on and so forth. Are there wider um, socio-political and environmental contexts which affect people's behavior and decisions? Absolutely, we know this, but that doesn't mean that people are absolved from that, right? Especially if you're talking about adults.
Hmm.
Okay, um, say a man grew up or a woman grew up um, in a single parent household. Okay, that doesn't mean that. So we know that a boy who grows up in a single parent household has a significantly higher chance of becoming a criminal or dropping
Hmm.
out of school, right? But number one, that doesn't mean that the majority of people born, raised in single parent families do that. And it also
Hmm.
doesn't mean that if someone becomes a criminal or drops out of school, they can't just point to, oh well, my dad wasn't there, so it's not my fault. My dad wasn't there. It's like, no,
Hmm.
bro. Like, you're an adult. You make decisions, and you pay the consequences of those decisions. And so, we need to, while trying to so-called improve the system and being very, very careful about that, everyone wants to improve society, improve culture, improve whatever systems are in place, but we don't want to. You need to be very careful not to absolve people of their agency
Hmm.
and deny personal responsibility, excuse me,
Definitely.
and accountability. So, and these conversations don't happen a lot, right? These type of conversations that we're having, they're rare, or when it happens it's so emotionally charged and people just start
Hmm.
accusing each other and calling people
Hmm.
names, and it just disintegrates into childish nonsense all the time.
Hmm.
And so I wish, I think it would be beautiful if, like, I don't know, the Republicans and the Democrats could actually have this conversation, right? Some of the things I've just brought up. Why can't they just go and just have this conversation honestly and say, okay, you know what? For the last few years, we've been, like, bludgeoning each other and lying about each other and spreading conspiracy
Hmm.
theories about each other and painting each other as being like the worst human beings on the planet. But actually, you know what? We're all Americans. We're all humans. We're all people. None of us are pro racism or pro police brutality
Hmm.
or pro, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of common ground, right? There are certain issues where it's like, okay, these are going to be difficult to reconcile for sure. But if people understand that, okay, probably 90% of what you're aiming towards is pretty similar, does anyone here want our communities to be more dangerous?
No.
Oh, okay, good. All right. Does any, does anyone here want more people to die?
No.
No. Okay, good. All right. Does anyone here, what? So agree on that stuff. And then when it comes to other issues, it's like, okay, then,
Hmm.
again, still discuss them. And the policies may go this way this time and they might go that way this time. But I think that's how, if people were, if adults were behaving like adults, that's
Hmm.
more what politics would look like. But, really, it's more of a blood sport. So
Oh
there it
yeah.
is.
Yeah. And what's really odd about this division is that for the most part, I think it's manufactured. And exacerbated by the news and social media. And
Agreed.
I think if you talk to a real life person, most real life people, they are both moderately conservative, as in they believe in some conservative
Yeah,
talking points and some liberal talking points.
exactly.
And the thing about social media, because it has minimal human contact, it leads you to assume that just because, say, for example, you believe in lower taxes. Well, Tucker Carlson from Fox News believes he's for in lower taxes, and he also believes in this and this and this, which I think are abhorrent. So
Mhm.
I will assume that you believe in the same thing that Tucker Carlson
Yeah,
believes in.
or you believe in low taxes because you hate poor people,
Oh yeah,
right? It's
that,
it's
that
like,
that's that.
you can't have a good reason for
Hmm.
believing in lower taxes. It has to be the worst reason possible. It has to be you hate poor people and you want them to die. That's it. I already know. Like, and you can't converse with people like this because it's a waste of time,
Hmm.
right? So, and if someone's not interested in having a mature discussion, look, man, I have billions of people like I can talk to. I'm not interested in wasting my time with people who can't have serious, mature discussions. If I see someone is doing that, I normally have like a two to three reply rule,
Hmm.
where if, like, within 2 to 3 replies, I'm like, okay, if you're not, if you're just being an idiot here, then
Hmm.
that's it. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt and assume good intentions and honesty. And then as soon as they sway from that, I'm like, you know what, dude, like, I'm not going to waste my time. My time is very valuable, and I'm not
Hmm.
going to waste it arguing with some, randomer on Twitter or whatever, who is just trying to frame me in a negative light or
Hmm.
straw man my position or score points, whatever it is. It's pointless, man.
Oh yeah, and I do enjoy your Twitter feed once in a while. It's and I quite I do admire the fact that you have the sort of like mental strength to even pursue that because I mean I just cannot.
No, I don't blame you. Don't do
Mhm.
it.
Mhm. Yeah. So we are about the at the end of our time here. So Zuby, thank you so much for being on the show. And
You're
I
welcome.
wonder if you have any closing statements or words to our listeners?
Man, think for yourself. Think critically. Um, yeah, just think. There's just an absence of critical thinking right now. There's a lot of groupthink going on, a lot of
Hmm.
hysteria, a lot of emotions overriding logic and reason. So just be willing and able to think for yourself. And also, it's okay to not know everything. It's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to do research and learn and go out there and don't just outsource your thinking to other people, right? Whether
Hmm.
that's people on the TV, people on social media, whatever. Don't assume that because the man on TV said something that it's absolutely correct, or because you read some article claiming that an expert said something that that expert is correct. Like do your research, look at the sources, and yeah, just learn to think critically, and it will serve you well in life.
All right, Zuby, everyone. The album Word of Zuby comes out next month, I believe, June.
Yeah, June, July, it'll be out officially.
All right. Thank you for being on the show.
You're welcome.